Hey guys, it's Runchuks from Love the Spot. This week's episode is all about the Galfond challenge. I was supposed to do the commentary on Run It Once channel on that day, and then suddenly the challenge was put on hold by Phil, so we did our regular podcast instead and discussed the challenge in depth. I had a conversation with VeniVidi a couple days before recording this episode, so we talk a bit about him, of course about Phil. We dive into speculations on what's going on behind the scenes and of course talk about the tweet by Luke Schwartz. This was a fun episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, we have timestamps in the description below, so you can just jump around the topics that interest you the most. Enjoy! And we're live. Alright, well, unexpected podcast this week, even though we are always on Wednesdays. It's a usual thing, regular weekly thing. But this week, I was supposed to be commentating the challenge, the Galfond challenge, on their channel today. Obviously, many of you, or most of you, I think, know that that has been cancelled, or at least the stream today has been cancelled. So we're doing our regular thing, and Tobi is joining me. Thank you, Tobi, for being here on a short notice. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm always happy to be here.
Yeah, and this time also, like, the new microphone is finally coming to life, so really pumped.
Yeah, it's good. It's getting better, finally.
Yeah, yeah, episode 5, according to you. um, Anyway, Robbie is already here. Good to see you, man. So yeah, exciting thing. Kind of slightly unprepared for this one, but the underlying topic is gonna be Galfond challenge. We're gonna just talk about it from all sorts of angles, and we'll see where it goes. Yeah, sorry, Robbie. I realized there was an echo.
Oh, on my end. Not
On
again.
No. I think we're fine. It's just I had something going on my screen. I think it's supposed to be fine now. Let's see. We're warming up still, and
I gotta say that I'm super happy that Robbie Expert is here again. He's our most loyal listener, I would say. Oh, Coffee Attack is also there. Nice.
nice, nice. Off the bar is here. Awesome. Good to see you guys. Everybody showed up on time. GG Slab. What's up, pros? What's up, man? So, what's this Schwartz's tweet? Have you seen it, Tobi? I haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't. No.
Can you guys post a link here? I want to see what's up. I'm sure he came up with something brilliant. Luke Schwartz, solve for Y. Okay, I see.
Oh, wait a minute. Is it Luke Schwartz? Because
Yeah.
there are two Schwartzes, I think.
No, I mean Luke, because that's what the guys in the chat are saying. Who do you mean the other Schwartz? What's his name? Uh,
I think there's Luke
Noah?
Schwartz.
Noah Schwartz?
Yes, yes.
All right. Yeah, Noah Schwartz. Shout out to him if he's listening. I like the guy. It's fun to play with him in live games. He never shuts up.
So who? Noah Schwartz or
Noah,
the other
yeah,
Schwartz?
Noah just never shuts up. He's just fucking insane. It's
I,
funny, but insane.
okay, I guess you could say the same about the other one.
Well, Luke, yeah, totally, totally, yeah. But they're different. Like Luke is very loud and crazy. Noah is very nice and crazy. So both Schwartzes are awesome. All right, so we got a link to the Twitter. Oh man, a long one. Something to do with the pigeon notes. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna discuss the pigeon notes today, and I suppose we're gonna address um, Luke's tweet as well. If we catch up with it, I'm not gonna start trying to read it now, but anyway, I suppose we better start with Galfond himself and like what's going on, and I want to also talk about Veni's part here, right? Because in fact, I talked with him earlier this week on Monday, because I thought I'm going to be commentating the challenge today. So I wanted to know if he has anything to say, like what's going on his side, etc., etc. So obviously, unfortunately, I don't get a chance to tell it to all the viewers of the challenge right now because the challenge is off today, but we're gonna talk about it here today. But first, Galfond. So Tobi, you read the tweet, right? The long tweet that he posted today.
Yes, I did, and I think it was super interesting. What I think was super ballsy was that he was convinced that he's still the favorite, and if you looked at the odds at poker shares, they had him as an underdog, and he keeps losing and losing, and then coming out and saying that after even all those losing days, he thought that he's still the favorite is quite ballsy, and I didn't really expect that to be honest. Because even if you think you're the favorite, you wouldn't say that publicly, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
what do
Yeah, I
you
mean,
think
he
about
didn't
that?
really specify that he thinks he's a favorite. Well, he said he thinks he has an edge, which is basically the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting because um, I thought that he's used to these challenges and long sessions and all I would just call it soft skills. So yeah, it's quite interesting to me that, how he handles the situation, how he's dealing with the downswing. And I just want the challenge to continue. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, well, it's gonna continue one way or another. He might not continue against Veni, but I do expect him to come back to the challenge because, now he's gonna be paying 3,000 euro per day for every day that he's taking off. Um, so that basically they had 6 more days planned for this month. So he's paying basically 18,000 euro, and if he still decides not to play, then that's kind of a bit of a waste of money. So I would expect him to come back in March, but we'll see.
I mean, by the way, that's amazing. That's just easy money. Just imagine you get 3K a day for just doing nothing.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. That is the best deal. And plus, you're sitting there already on over 900,000 win. Plus, in case there's a cancellation, then the 200 extra is coming his way. So it's 1.1 million. It's a pretty sweet spot.
Yeah, it certainly is.
But I think, for Veni, it's very important to stay focused. Like, he can't afford to start thinking that this thing is over and start relaxing because basically, if Phil comes back, they're back at it and swings are going to happen. You can't start counting your money yet because it's not your money. And I'm sure, he has a very good approach, very professional approach to this. So he wouldn't do this mistake. But, it's definitely important for him probably to remain focused, right? Because still, 15,000 hands potentially to go in this one. And, we see Phil struggling so much. And Phil has the mental game. As you said, like, he's one of the best in terms of the mental game and how he handles swings, etc., etc. But even he is suffering, right? So anybody's prone to the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. And also, Coffee Attack is bringing up a good point. He's saying that it's fascinating that he admitted that the volume requirements he set up has possibly backfired. And I'm not sure if that's true because it's just a nasty downswing, and it's always harder to to play more if you're on a downswing. So, I'm not sure if it was a mistake to begin with. Maybe it's just super unlucky.
Well, another thing, actually, you just mentioned downswing, right? And Galfond in every tweet keeps saying downswing, downswing, downswing. What is a downswing in this case? So every time you're losing, because I mean, as you said, Phil basically sees that or thinks that he still has an edge. So justification for losing for him is, well, it's a downswing. It's just variance, etc., etc. This is kind of tricky. We're talking, what was it, like 15 sessions so far? And all the time we're talking downswing, downswing. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good approach.
So, I mean, also GG Lab said that heads up variance is a big deal, especially PLO. It's just like even good players, they really underestimate how big of a deal the variance is. And just from the results, you can't really extract that Veni's the better player. So I don't know what your opinion is, but I think it's more about the showdowns and more like how it played out. So yeah, what do you think? I think we shouldn't be too result oriented.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought that Veni is a better player before the challenge, like coming into this challenge out of them two. I was expecting Phil to work really hard away from the tables on his game, and I'm sure he does, and I'm sure he's trying to adjust and he's trying to improve. But that's the problem with this volume requirement, right? The fact that you have to play 5 days a week basically means you already, like, once you hit the downswing, as we've mentioned the downswing so many times already, but once you go on a bad swing, you have to deal with that. And you also have to deal with the fact that perhaps your game is not at the best, and perhaps you have leaks, and your opponent clearly exploits them. So there's so much for Phil to work on. So in fact, him taking this time off, and of course, he's saying the reason for taking the time off is that he's not in a good state of mind at the moment, and I totally understand, and I mean, everybody can see why that would be the case. But, realistically, just taking a step back and working on your game, trying to figure out what's going on a bit better, maybe readjusting the plan, because Phil has a team of people working with him, I'm sure. I mean, I have nothing confirmed, but I'm sure he's not alone on this one. He's going to have people working with him. The team has a lot of problems to solve now, because he clearly can't continue the way he was playing.
Yes, that's true. And I would love to see his approach now. Do you think he's just gonna take a few days off, or do you think he's just working in the background and doing as much as he can?
Well, I really believe that actually his state of mind is not in the right place right now. So he probably just needs to take a complete breather. Just probably take a few days off, completely no poker. That's what I would have done in his shoes in this situation, right? Because, I mean, we've all been in situations where just nothing goes your way, and the only way to reset is really just to start anew, and you can't do it just every day working on the thing and expect to come fresh the next day. It's not going to happen, right? So probably a few days off. In the background, probably his team would be working on the strategy or on some adjustments, etc., etc., and then it's back to the drawing board and preparing better. Probably taking another chance at it. Trying to play at least a few days, because Phil seems to be, very focused on how he feels he's playing, whether he thinks he was making good decisions or bad decisions, and that's how he evaluates the quality of his play, which of course is the correct approach. The question is whether he actually understands whether his plays were really all that sound.
Okay, so sometimes it's hard to see what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you think maybe that's what's going on, that he has some leaks he just can't see, and that Vini is exploiting them?
Well, it's possible, but of course, there's so much variance, and to be honest, like it was clear from the very beginning that the sheer volume of the challenge is going to be the main concern for all parties involved, right? In this case, it's 25,000 hands. Against coaches, he wanted to play 50,000 hands, and that was what stopped me from taking this thing. And in fact, recently, well, before he announced all the things about taking the break, etc., but let's say, when was it? Like last week on Sunday when he hit the minus 900 mark, minus 900,000. A lot of people were reaching out to me, a lot of friends and just people that I know or, have my contacts. And they were just asking me, don't I feel stupid for declining the challenge? Right? And no, actually. Right? Absolutely not. Because, I mean, of course, emotionally you could think like, oh, shit, he's losing 900,000. I could have been the one, on the receiving end. But it's the same as thinking like, oh my God, this guy won the main event, right? I could have been him. It's just, you can't think like this. It's being too results oriented, etc., etc. For me, what's happening with Phil is a clear indication that, my concerns about how difficult emotionally and otherwise this challenge is going to be, it's all confirmed. All right. Even Phil is suffering, and I imagine, if I was on the receiving end on a bad swing like this, the life is gonna be hell, and especially with all the public pressure. This challenge is very much out there in the public eye. That's something I'm not used to, and I don't think Phil was used to it to such an extent. Because obviously he even feels the need to keep posting explanations about what's going on, etc., etc. Let's face it, if it wasn't for the public pressure, he might have bailed out of the challenge already a few days ago.
Yeah, it's also so interesting to see how quickly the perception changes, because obviously he's still a great player and still a world-class player. It's just a couple of hands, a couple of bad days. It's not like the end of the world, but it's a big deal because it's the big challenge, and it was his idea, and it's public and nosebleed stakes. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's still not impossible to come back. It's super unlikely. But even if he doesn't come back and even if he loses, he's still a great player. And I think some players don't really see that, or some viewers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we have a question about who are the guests. Well, Tobi is the guest today, but Tobi is really a co-host. Today we have a Galfond special episode. But coming back to what you just said on, people perceive Phil to be like, well, some people, being results oriented, they think like, oh my God, he's clearly a worse player than Veni, etc., etc. It's funny that, before the challenge, so many people had the perception like, oh, who's this Veni guy? We don't know anything about him. He can't be that good because Phil is the best, right? All of a sudden, after a few days of playing, like, oh, clearly Veni is the best player. It's true. People change their opinions so quickly without real basis. Because, one thing that you said in the beginning of our today's conversation was that, it's still unclear. Like, you can't really for sure say that one of them is way better than the other. Right? The sample size is way too small for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And anyway, I talked with Vinny, like I mentioned already, and you know, it happened like our conversation was before Phil announced this little break. And Vinny was saying like he has utmost respect for Phil, and he still thinks that this guy's working really hard, and he's a very good player, etc., etc. Right? So he's definitely not underestimating Phil and what he's capable of. Whereas so many people watching from outside are so quick to dismiss, like, oh, Phil has no chance, etc., etc., which is clearly not true. And of course, the biggest challenge that Phil is facing right now is the emotional challenge of how do you keep going?
It would be interesting to know if he also thinks that he has an edge, um, or if he only thinks that he has an edge money-wise because of the challenge, because of the odds he got.
Mm,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, but because of the odds, how do you reckon? Like, how why would he have an edge because of the odds?
I mean, because of the side bet.
Right, but the side bet is 200,000 to 100,000 is not even that big in the bigger scheme of things.
It's true, but edges nowadays are small, especially heads up against another great player. So, I mean, I guess it's a lot of money you would risk for a small gain, but if you think it's a fair match and nobody has an edge, then you would still take the challenge, probably, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, maybe it's more likely that he also thinks that he has an edge. Or maybe he thought before that he has an edge and now he doesn't think that anymore, which is also, of course, super unlikely, but possible.
Mm. Yeah. And also, like, let's not forget that he has, and people in the chat are mentioning that he has still several challenges lined up. Coffee Attack is seeing 6 more. Is it really 6 more? I thought it's 6 total.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see you.
Yeah, well, he has 6 more. Everybody wants to see me, really. A 7th
Against
challenge.
him, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm
So,
still
but
I'm still thinking about it to do it later this year, but I always thought that being the first one to play against him would have been the best thing. Playing later in the year, he's gonna be way, way, way better prepared, right? And apart from just him being better prepared in terms of his poker skill, that's even a minor concern. Like him just being very well prepared for doing these challenges. That's the big thing, right?
I'm not sure about that because you could also be exhausted. I mean, if you have to do that 5 times and you have to play a lot of hands, it's also super exhausting. So maybe it's the opposite.
Yeah, I don't know about that because I think for the challenges later in the year, he was more flexible with the dates because it was always discussed that it depends how the other challenges pan out. So I think he can always just take a breather. He's not forced to jump into the next challenge straight after. At least that's what I think. So it would be unlikely that he's so exhausted from all the challenges and he has to play me, for example, for 50,000 hands. That would have been unlikely.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
But the whole thing, because like I keep saying that in my opinion, what Action Freak right now is doing with Linus Love, right? Action Freak is probably more than just preparing for in terms of like his poker strategy. He's preparing for the challenge itself. He's playing these 4, 5, 6 hour days every day. And that's That's something clearly so important because you have to, as part of this challenge, as you're contractually obliged to do it 5 days a week. And that's not an easy feat. You have to basically be so quick at resetting your mental state because it's heads up PLO. You know, one day you're going to win big, one day you're going to lose big, but the next day you have to be fresh. You can't come into the session with the baggage of what happened yesterday, right? It always is a clean slate. It always is a clean, empty page, right? And in fact, in his message, Phil was talking about it, that, you know, he came into some of his last few sessions with the feeling that he's just going to lose. You know, a bit scared to make plays, a bit scared to follow through with his plan, just because he, gets to this point where he thinks, okay, I'm going to bluff here, but what's the point? He's going to call, right? And it's clearly a horrible state of mind to be in.
Yes, I also think it was super interesting how honest the whole text was, because a lot of players have problems admitting that they're doing something wrong because they're on tilt, or that they don't play optimally. And I really admire that he was super honest, and I mean, he's one of the best players in the world, and even he has problems dealing with a big downswing, and just openly saying that it has been tough for him and that he's not playing his best.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but what would you do in his shoes? He has all the public attention on him, right? And he's a public figure. In this case, he's the one who's the challenger. He's the one who is the face of Run It Once poker site and Run It Once training site. And he, before the challenges, came up with so many explanations about why he's doing this, why it's important to him, how much he's looking forward to this. He can't just be silent about it. He can't take a week off and not write this post or any post. That would have been really bad. Imagine he disappears for a week and nobody hears from him.
Yes, obviously that's true, but you don't have to talk about your feelings in that way and saying that you didn't play optimally. You can always blame it on cards or just a downswing, or
but
whatever.
Well, it would have been weird if Phil did it, because, I mean, Phil is clearly one of the most professional people in the poker world, and is just an honest guy. He is good at self-assessment, and he just puts his heart out there, right, when he writes the message. But I'm not sure he wants to write that message. I know myself, that would have been like the last thing on my to-do list. Let's say I'm in a pretty shitty state of mind. I'm thinking like, oh my God, nothing's going my way. I hate it. So first of all, I need to play tomorrow. You know what? I'm going to cancel tomorrow. And then we see what happens, right? And then obviously he canceled the rest of the month. But so imagine you're going through these thoughts. You're going through this process, but you know that you have to write a message to the public because the public expects it. In Veni's shoes, let's say if, the roles were reversed and Veni just has to disappear for a week, he doesn't have to write anything. He doesn't have the same type of pressure on him.
Yes, that's obviously true, and I think that's why it was super smart to be a ghost for him. You just don't show your face, and it's just even harder. It adds more pressure, and as you said, I think it's super nasty if you have to talk about it all the time. You keep losing and losing, and then you gotta talk about it.
Yeah.
So
We have a couple interesting questions here in the chat. Like, first of all, Coffee Attack is saying, like, if I can talk more about my conversation with Veni, and it kind of ties up to what we've been talking so far. First of all, Veni had a message to the fans. Let's put it this way. He actually said that, he really appreciates and, likes the fact that so many people support him. He didn't expect it going into this. I mean, he obviously didn't, focus on what's going to be the public implications for him on doing this challenge. It was more just a business decision, and it's a nice thing. He really appreciates all the people sending the, or writing the posts with support messages to him. He actually reads those comments once in a while, even though when the hell does he find time, right? But he does, and he really appreciates it all. So that's interesting. I was quite surprised. That was the first thing he told me, and I was like, wow, really, this is really interesting, because it's so easy to just forget about the human aspect of this whole thing, right? On paper, we just look at two guys, swinging close to €1 million in a couple week time. But in reality, there's so much going on behind the scenes, like so much emotion on both sides, and both sides have to work on basically managing their expectations, managing their approach, managing their emotions, and it's fascinating. And another thing, actually, from that conversation with Veni, which really stood out for me, and I was really surprised to learn this, because when I was commentating on the challenge a few weeks ago, a lot of people in the chat were, talking about the fact that they reset the stacks at 200 big blinds. And I was really sure that that's something that Veni actually wanted, because he clearly is better prepared for the 100 big blind situations, right? So I was pretty sure that, that's his initiative. And in fact, it's not. He never even asked for it. It was just there in the contract. And, so apparently it's not even something that he wanted necessarily.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess it's better for the one who wants to avoid variance. So in that case, if Phil thinks he has an edge and there's a side bet, then I think it's better to avoid variance.
Right.
So it makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah, well, also, just even without the edge, clearly with bigger stacks, there's more variance, and giving the side bet with more variance is just a risky business, right? Because anything can happen. The more variance you create, the less beautiful that 2-1 looks for Phil, because it becomes just more and more risky. So in fact, probably this 200 big blind reset was basically a decision for, like you said, just reducing the variance, and it's something that came from Phil. But to be honest, now, of course, Phil probably would like to play deeper, because he's the one who wants to, or probably needs to, increase the variance a bit. But, even though like a lot of fans would probably want to see it, but it's clearly not going to happen. I mean, it would be just not a smart decision for Veni to allow that. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for him. Maybe he's going to see some benefits in that, but I don't expect that to happen.
So what else did he talk about? Did he say anything about how he's going to prepare for the next session or the next sessions?
Well, I mean, we talked with him before anybody knew about the break that Phil is taking. Even he didn't know anything about. I mean, we talked when he was still scheduled to play on that day when we were talking, right? So we didn't really talk about this aspect of how he's gonna, what is he gonna do the rest of the month? Like, what is his approach is gonna be? I'm really curious to find out, so I might actually talk about this with him whenever I get a chance. But I asked him about, like, in general, how's it going for him, and how's his life right now. And it just seems like he's very, very determined. He's really working hard and approaching this very professionally. And he clearly understands how important it is to keep everything in check, both in terms of your game and preparation, but also just life outside the games, right? Because you have to have full focus and full commitment to the challenge. You can't allow anything to interfere with your routine, right? Because any distraction, anything that happens outside, away from the tables, is basically, well, it's very unwelcome. Any distraction would be just bad. So
Yeah.
he's, kind of actively working on making sure that everything goes smoothly on and off the tables. And yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, he's always been a very, determined professional player, and he is very well prepared for a challenge like this. He feels in his element of, just working super hard.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't really in the spotlight, but he's also somebody who's been around for years and years and playing high stakes for years and years. So obviously he's also super experienced and also just a world-class player. So obviously he also knows a lot about all the small edges you can gain and about just being a proper professional.
Absolutely, yeah. And also like the fact how highly he thinks of Phil was also interesting to me, because like he definitely doesn't start celebrating just yet. And obviously, again, we talked before this happened, this little break, but regardless, I don't think that changes anything in his approach. He still knows that he needs to keep working hard. He can't relax. He can't take the foot off the throttle. He can't just start doing bullshit, because to be honest, all it takes is just a couple of days of playing bad, and then you start losing your confidence, and it just snowballs from there, and then you end up where, well, Phil is right now. So I really hope actually that it doesn't happen to anyone in these challenges again, right? Because that's the part of the challenges that is least enjoyable for me. Just seeing somebody get into a pretty bad spot emotionally, right?
Yes, of course.
Even though, it was clear that this is always going to be one of the biggest dangers here. Danger is maybe too big of a word, but, the biggest challenges in this whole affair.
Yeah, it's also a little sad because it's not really a close match right now, and it's just not as fun to watch if you don't know what's gonna happen. It's just more fun, if you don't know who's gonna win. It's just more interesting. And another good point he brought up in his text is that he has a lot of problems because of his high expectations. And I think that was also super interesting because he talked about that. It was kind of like he thought that this is going to be his year and his challenge, and he was just expecting so much, and so that makes it even harder to deal with the downswing now.
Yeah, of course. This thing of him setting these huge expectations, and I understand that that's one way how he motivates himself. But at the same time, when things like this happen, he just built up too much kind of public attention on his side of the story here. And that's pretty hard to deal with, I suppose. Coffee Attack is saying he's wondering whether Veni has someone else to cook for his cook his food, clean his place, etc., etc. We didn't talk about that, but to me it seems like clearly that should be the case. When I was considering doing the challenge, like one of the first things I started looking into is, okay, well, how do I make sure that I basically don't need to do any chores, including like shopping or whatever? You just can't afford to do these things, obviously. Unless it like brings you pleasure or something, but I doubt it. I doubt that Veni is the kind of guy who goes, to the local supermarket and, wants to buy the freshest vegetable out there.
I mean, it's funny to me because that's something I always want to avoid, even without a challenge. I think it's
Right,
super important. I want to spend as much time as I can at the
right.
tables or with something that is fun. And yeah, I think it's always a good thing to find a cleaning lady and
Mm. Oh, cleaning lady, absolutely, yeah. Funny that actually, I just realized I was cleaning the swimming pool today. My own, not somebody else's. I didn't go to the neighbor. Can I clean your swimming pool? No, so I was cleaning the swimming pool, and I
you
start to
brag.
really enjoy it. You know, it's a big process. You know, without I'm not gonna go into details. It's just too ridiculous. I feel stupid for bringing this up now, but I catched myself thinking. You know, while I was doing it, I was thinking like, if I was playing the challenge, I clearly wouldn't be, cleaning a swimming pool right now. And then I started thinking, what other things would I not be doing? And it's just a huge list. Right? Just your life, as you know it, pretty much changes because you can't fit in so much work um, in your regular schedule. The schedule would be completely different. And all the commitments. And to me, also, like, still, imagine Galfond has, another like half a year of these challenges lined up, and he has a little baby. And I'm still I'm not really worried about him, but I still don't know if he actually knew what he's doing. Because, for example, my little kid had, some teeth were coming, I suppose, a few days. So he had pretty high fever and just being miserable, etc., etc. And I imagine, like, if I was so busy that I can't even just spend, like, a few hours with him without, like, really spend a few hours with him, not, like, spend a few hours with him while thinking about my challenge or my hands, completely switch off, it would suck for me personally. I wonder how is Phil, gonna handle these situations, which are bound to come up. I mean, he has, like, a 1-year-old kid, and it's 6 months' time. A lot of things are happening, and you're bound to miss some moments there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he really thought this through. I hope he did.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if not. I think that's something every player has to ask himself is like, how much time do you want to spend with poker and what goals do you want to achieve? And, myself, I want to play high stakes and I want to spend a lot of time with poker and I want to make a lot of money. But, if somebody just wants to play mid stakes or even low stakes and, earn 3K a month and has to spend only 5 hours a day, it's also fine. And yeah, I think everybody has to find it out for himself. But I think, he's been playing poker for so many years. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think he took that into consideration. I would be surprised if not.
Yeah, I mean, sure, he took it into consideration, but it's his first kid. It's not like he knows what he's doing, right? In that
Mm.
situation, because it's not like people. Well, this is now becoming a podcast about kids, and and actually, speaking of which, I think and some viewers requested it before, and we're gonna have one podcast coming up with one of our guests talking about yeah poker players having a relationship, a stable relationship, and having a family. Because this is becoming more and more of a big topic for a lot of people because a lot of guys came into this being young single guys or girls, and you look some 8 years, 10 years forward, and like, okay, everybody's in a sort of settled down kind of mode, so it's becoming more and more interesting. But the thing about kids, how can you plan something if you don't actually know what's gonna happen there? It's a kid. It's not like you can tell him to just relax. You're not gonna say, "Hey, feeling bad today? Well, Daddy's gonna go play some poker. You just stay put and relax." It's not gonna happen. But anyway, we're getting off track here. Started talking about Veni and him trying to, find a cook and a cleaning lady, which I'm sure he does. And then we progressed into the kid story. But
So Marcin is asking, does Phil or Veni has a team of high-stakes players analyzing the match for them? So, we are not sure because we don't know what's going on in the background, but I would guess that it's pretty likely that both of them have other players who help them.
well, it's it's
I mean, I
super
would be
unlikely
shocked
that
if not.
that's not the case. It has to be the case, and it's the thing is we don't know exactly who are working with who, like who's working with who, but it has to be the case because it's impossible. It's like such a huge amount of work for one person to do it all. You have to play for 4, 5, 6 hours, and then you have to analyze your session. You have to analyze the tendencies of your opponent, try to figure out the exploitative strategies, etc., etc. It's just way too much work for one person to handle.
Yeah.
And plus, we're talking only about the team of people who help you with like poker related things, but there's also a team that have to help you, like in this case a cook, a cleaning lady, etc. Well, a cleaning lady less so, but a cook for sure is part of your team. And even people who would provide you assistance with mental game and all that things, and I mean obviously I don't know exactly how they're approaching it. People are different. I don't know if Phil actually has a big team around him there, but I would be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it everywhere. You can also see it in like football teams or basketball teams. The teams are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They have more and more coaches. They have an analyst. They have mental coach. They have a physio, whatever. And I think it's also, if you play for the highest stakes in poker, if you accept this challenge, you gotta just do everything you can in order to prepare for this. So yeah, I would be shocked if they don't have a team behind them.
Yeah.
So
Coffee
here,
Attack actually believes Tiny Nigel's little joke about when he's being a part-time player. Nah, man, he's not a part-time player. He's very much a full-time professional. Wouldn't that be funny though? Phil Phil is beaten by a part-time recreational player. Venny is in fact like a 60-year-old lawyer. That would be so much fun. I would love that.
I mean, you're
Imagine that's the
also,
big reveal. Like, what happens is Phil Galfond resigns, throws in the towel of like, no, I can't take it anymore. And then this guy, like a 60-year-old guy, it comes out like, yep, yeah, I got all my strategy from Doyle Brunson's super system too. It works for me ever since.
I mean, it's possible because you're also a part-time pool boy, right?
Yeah, part-time pool boy. Well, that's the thing, if ever I need to find another profession, I actually found something that I really enjoy. It's cleaning pools. At least my own. I don't know if it's gonna be the same if I go around neighbors.
I mean, I would hire you.
All right.
I would totally hire you.
All right. Cool. Cool. I have one customer. I'm starting a little company here. You need to move next doors, though. I'm not gonna fucking fly to another country to clean your pool.
All right.
Oh man.
So it would be interesting to see what the listeners think who's the better player. If everybody is thinking now that Veni's a better player, or maybe some viewers still think that Phil is a beast and still a better player, but just on a downswing. So if you think Phil is better and has a chance to come back, press 1. And if you think that Veni's better, press 2, please.
Right, and that's how are we gonna find out? It's like a call center situation. I'm sure we actually can run some polls, but I don't even know how to technically do it. But there's one vote for the lawyer guy already. Yeah. The truth is, though, I mean, we're talking about two great players here, right? Regardless what happens, I don't like in my book, Phil's stock is not gonna go down. If Phil just decides to throw in the towel, I won't think less of him. And I think it like challenge like this, it won't define them, and it's really important not to take to kind of take your ego out of the equation for both of them, because just because Phil let's say loses doesn't mean that he all of a sudden is not a great poker player. And likewise, if, for example, if Veni crushes Phil and Phil throws in the towel, and I don't think that Veni is gonna just go around the wall talking that he's the best because he beat Phil. You have to remain focused on what you can do, what you can control, and I'm sure that they both really know that.
Yeah, true. So everybody's saying here 2, which was Veni.
Right.
I'm surprised that nobody voted for Phil.
Right. Well, it's our channel. I suppose if we made the poll on Run It Once channel, Phil would have had a bit more support there.
Yeah, but it's not like Veni's. It's not like Veni's channel,
No, but
I think this is pretty fair. I don't think it's biased here.
Yeah.
And Marcin voted for number 3, which is Vanessa Selbst is the best player in the world. I don't know what a 3 is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know either. Yeah. Oh, well. Poor Phil. Anyway, I still fully expect him to get back to the challenge 1st of March. I mean, it would be really weird if he still bails out after taking so much time off.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely. And also, it's sad, but it's only the first challenge. So even if he's on the downswing now, there's still a challenge coming up against Bill Perkins, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he loses a lot, he can always win it back later.
Yeah, the Bill Perkins one is going to be a huge variance play. There's a stop loss, a forced stop loss at 20 buy-ins.
I mean, I don't know how good Bill Perkins is.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not going to be just Bill Perkins, right? It's all of his Thirst Lounge guys, and Phil is not allowed to know who he's playing against. So there's going to be a lineup of different opponents, some of them better than the others. So Phil can't have any reads. Phil can't have any real adjustments because he never knows who he's playing against. It's going to be a pretty tough one.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's super interesting. So, but it means that it's easier for him in a way because he doesn't have to think about exploiting the other player that much. But he can just, play his basic style.
Yeah,
but yeah,
well,
it obviously also reduces his win rate.
Yeah, I would assume that's a good way to go, but Phil always keeps saying that he is very much like not a field player per se, but like he always tries to find reads. He always tries to exploit opponents more so than just play like a solid strategy. So perhaps that's actually going to backfire a bit because he's not prepared to play that way. And also, if we think about it, think about it. Bill Perkins basically openly is saying that he's going to just go for maximum variance. His best play is probably just to be all in every hand, right, with the side bet that he's getting. So he's going to go for increasing the variance as much as possible. And what if Phil is down like, I don't know, 10 buy-ins in 3 days' time? How is that going to feel?
Yeah, I mean, it is a smart strategy. In his shoes, I would do the same, you know. I would play the same way.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, he was openly saying that even before they agreed on the challenge. He told Phil that, hey, that's going to be my thing. Right? So Phil knows that. But the thing is, now Phil is going to be walking into that challenge with all the mental scars, let's put it this way, from the challenge against VeniVidi. Right? And we all know how, once you already are fatigued mentally from the downswing, it just takes a small event, like a small trigger to just put you on a monkey tilt. Right? Because, at one point, the cup is too full kind of thing. You've been taking the hits, and then all of a sudden you just, I can't stand it anymore. All right? And I don't think Phil is immune to this. His cup is probably one of the biggest cups out there, so it's going to take quite some time before it's full. But he's not immune to this.
Yes, I mean, I think it's true, but also if you play against another player, I think it's a little different, especially when you play against a player who is clearly not as good as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I think it's always harder if you play against another great player and you're not really sure if you have an edge, how big your edge is, and then you keep losing and losing. Whereas if you play against a fun player, then it's just easier, You're not doubting yourself that much.
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, with all the variance going into this, if you know that you only have 20 buy-ins, you can afford to lose 20 buy-ins, because then the match is over. It would be an unenviable situation to be 10, 15 buy-ins down.
Yeah, true. And somebody is asking if you can just reduce variance when you sacrifice EV. I think it's possible. How would you do that? Do you think it would be smart to, play more small ball strategy, limp more, stuff like that? Or do you think, the edge is just too big and he just should play the way he always plays?
Against Perkins?
Yeah.
Against Perkins, it might be a good idea. If he sees that Perkins is just 3-betting every hand or something ridiculous like that, right? It might be a good idea to widen up your limping range, increase your SPR. Because, against the weaker player, Phil actually would probably like to have a bigger SPR, or stack to pot ratio, for those who need the explanation. But, so that would be one way. But again, I suppose in that challenge, there's going to be a time where Phil has to sort of manage the swing, right? Because if he is winning, he has less incentive to reduce the variance. He has more incentive to increase his win rate to make sure that he actually comes out on top in the end. Once he's getting closer to, minus something, then he might need to start thinking about these things. I haven't thought about this question before, so maybe I'm even wrong about it, but I'm sure that Phil will really have that thought through thoroughly. You know,
Yeah,
he's gonna come in prepared. He's gonna know the numbers and the adjustments he needs to make, etc., etc. And plus for Perkins' challenge, he has enough time to prepare. And by he, I mean somebody in his team is gonna do the math and like try to figure out what are the better approaches to manage the variance in that match.
yes. So now that I think about it more, it's actually super hard to answer because there's so many moving parts. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you want to find all the exploits. Then you don't even know who you are playing against. And then also your strategy should also change based on how much you're up or down. So that's actually really tough to find the right strategy there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, Perkins' challenge is not gonna be his biggest hurdle. He has Action Freak lined up as well. That's gonna be interesting.
Okay, if you had to make a list of the 5 best players, what would you say?
5 best players in what format?
PLO heads up.
PLO heads up. PLO heads up. What stacks? I guess the reason I'm
Mostly,
asking these questions is because, you know, I think that there are a lot of players who specialize in one specific format and one specific kind of stack size situation, and they're gonna be up top. And you know, they're so. If we talk universally, like any stack depth, any format, etc., etc., the list is very different to if we, let's say, talk about like 100 big blind, heads up, poker, and PLO.
yes, true. But why did you ask about the stakes? I mean, it's obvious that I'm not talking about the
No, oh,
best
did I ask about
micro
the
stake
stakes? Sorry,
grinder.
no, I thought about I was asking about the stack size. I didn't realize I asked for the stakes.
Okay, maybe I also misunderstood.
But maybe the stakes also matter because the rake situation is different. But yeah, it's unlikely that somebody from micro stakes makes the top 5 list. I'm sorry, but yeah, yeah, I don't know. Super tough question. I'd rather not even answer. Uh, you know, and I do you think actually Veni is top 5?
I mean, you know them better than I do. So for me, it's super hard to say. And you should take it with a grain of salt. But
Mm.
if I think about really good players, who comes to my mind? I mean, there's Sauce, of course. I mean, maybe he's
Mm,
not one of the best now.
no,
I don't know, but I feel like he's one who has the ability to become really good really fast.
right.
Um, Action Freak should be there, I guess.
Yeah,
I I'm wondering how good Linus Love is. I think that is super interesting
yeah.
because, you know, in Hold'em he destroyed everything and everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been battling with Action Freak for weeks now, and you know, I don't think he's just doing it for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually played a few sessions with him lately as well. And heads up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but
Tell
not
us
enough
more.
sample. I didn't really. I mean, I wasn't obviously in the pool to play against him. There were some 5K and 10K heads up running on stars. I might have played like 50 hands against Linus.
And what is your first impression?
Uh, I mean, 50 hands, really. I mean, looks like a professional player to me. You know, that's pretty much sums it up, you know. Didn't look like a fish, that's for sure. You know, 50 hands, I really have nothing to say there. I mean, obviously there's nothing, and like nothing stood out. There was not a single hand when I thought like, oh, this is amazing, or oh, this is weird. It just, you know, 50 standard hands. I don't even remember if we played a big pot. Maybe.
Okay.
Really, nothing stood out.
So the chat is saying that very sweet. Oh yeah, forgot
Very
him.
sweet, definitely. Omaha for Rolls, definitely up there as well. Action Freak. Yeah, a
Do
few
you
other
think
names come to mind. I see Jay Nandes is mentioned in the chat. Not one of the top 5 for sure. I'm sorry, guys. And by the way, Jay Nandes was on our podcast last week. And we're going to publish that episode later this weekend on YouTube. It was so great. I really enjoyed the conversation with the guy. It was really interesting. And yeah, not top 5 player in the world, though, but he doesn't need to be because, you know, he is just doing great things in business with the poker and, you know, and the whole conversation. Like, it was really interesting to get to know him, you know, because so many times before on our podcast, people brought up, like, what's your opinion of Jay Nandes, etc., etc. And I was always like, I don't really have an opinion. I don't, you know, really follow what he's doing. I'm busy with my own thing. So I was happy to have this conversation. And by the way, next week we're going to have Ben CB as our guest. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. I have so many questions to ask this guy. It's going to be fun.
wow, a lot of stars here.
Yeah.
Big star power.
Big star power, yeah. Absolutely. E27 in top 5? Nah. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good player, but not top 5.
Okay, so what is your list? You had enough time to think about it.
Not really, because I wasn't. Well, I had time, but I wasn't thinking about it. But I'm so bad with names. If I would see, because I never tried to make the list, but definitely Berry Sweet is up there. Action Freak is up there. Omaha for Rolls is gonna be up there. A few other guys like this Mowgli guy, Mowgli Miranda, whatever. What's his? I'm So Good. I'm So Good is pretty good, and his nickname is very fitting. So yeah, there's a few guys, and it's not. Well, I think yeah, they are up there. You know, whether that is a definitive top 5, I don't know. Nowadays, I would think maybe Veni is, you know, maybe there. Before the challenge, I don't think so, because he never really focused on heads up that much. He's more of a 6-max player. But clearly he did a lot of prep work for the challenge, so, you know, quite intensive work in the lab, if we can call it that way. So I think maybe he's up there now. About Linus, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure he's gonna, you know, if he sticks with it and if he really focuses on this, he has every chance of basically, you know, making top 5, top 3, whatever he sets his goal on, right? Because clearly, you know, his experience with Hold'em shows that he can. But it's a lot of work. So we'll see if he sticks to it. I suppose if he does, then yeah, he has a chance to get there.
So where do you see yourself?
Oh, in heads up, I'm nowhere near the top 5, or I don't even know top what. I don't focus on heads up that much. I jump into the games occasionally when I feel like it. I jump into the games where there's a special person playing there. I mean, I'm good enough to hold my ground when I'm battling for the 6-max tables. You know, that's That's where sort of my ambition lies at the moment. Of just basically being able to fend off people who want to challenge me for the seat at the Six Max.
Okay, now the typical job interview question. Where do
Okay.
you see yourself in 1 year?
Where do I see myself in 1 year? Oh man, this is really backfiring now. Well, actually, that's a pretty tough question. Recently, I've been really struggling with trying to get all my commitments sort of sorted out, right? Because I have a lot of things going on apart from poker, and sometimes it feels like it drags me away from the games a bit too much, more than I would like to. So, I'm currently trying to figure out a way to outsource as much as I can and to basically, regain full focus on my game. But in 1 year time, I don't think I want to, achieve much more in a heads up field. But I definitely want to, achieve a significant win rate against my current self in Six Max. I want to improve by a lot, without like any specific goal in mind, because I'm already playing the highest stakes that are running, so there's no real like target to go for. But it's just I still see so much room for improvement, so I just want to work focused and determined to just see real progress first and foremost for myself, just to see that I managed to improve.
I think it's a good approach. And also, I think talent is underrated in poker. I mean, no matter what they say, like, I heard it so often that there is no talent in poker and it's just hard work and work ethic, but I don't think it's true. There's always talent. And I think if you want to reach the top, if you want to be a top five player, there's a lot of talent also involved. So I think it doesn't make sense to have that as a goal, I guess, unless you know for a fact that you're good enough.
Mm. Well, unless you know that you're good enough, but also, like for me, that personally doesn't. It doesn't appeal to me. Like I don't see any benefit in just what is it gonna do to me if like I somehow achieve the top spot out there? Like what's in it for me?
For you, it's all about the money.
Not so much. Not really just all about the money. I mean, clearly most of my decisions related to the how I manage my career are more about the balance between what I want to do and what has to be done, sort of thing, right? And I definitely don't want to geek out and like spend 12 hours a day playing or studying poker 5 days a week. It just doesn't appeal to me. And I don't think there's an easier way to actually become the very, very best.
Yes, and I think a lot of people have a false uh, perception because even if you play mid stakes nowadays, it's not easy and you got to work a lot and you have to make sacrifices. And I see that a lot that some players they just stop playing and think, okay, I'm gonna win a lot of money without having a plan, without um, working on their game, without studying a lot. It's just not that easy anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've talked about this over and over again, but it can't be said enough. I mean, it's so true. You have to realize that this is hard work, and you know, you got to do the work. There's no shortcut. And coming back to some, because I see some more names in the chat about the top five thing. Um, some people that I forgot to mention probably don't know if they necessarily hit the get into the top five, but for example, Sanita, is there, always in the lobbies. He's pretty good, definitely pretty good. Grozviz as well. He's very good, in my opinion, one of the top. So yeah, those two names I actually forgot to mention.
So Coffee Attack is asking, can a part-time grinder still be successful in online poker these days? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can. Because, like, if we think about it, I'm a sort of part-time grinder, right? Even though I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I want to be as full-time as I can. But like I said, I'm currently, slightly overwhelmed with a few commitments that I have to tackle, and I'm doing it, and I see the light in the end of the tunnel, so I'm going to be just fine. But it's not necessary to, again, definition of success, right? If success means to be, a nosebleed crusher, the guy who gets the magic wand in the Avatar in the Phil Galfond challenge. Did you see that, by the way, that Action Freak got the Harry Potter style wand, kind of notifying that he's the wizard out of all the guys?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he has like a Harry Potter wand and a little scar. So Action Freak is apparently the wizard. Well, that remains to be seen. But anyway, so what's the definition of success, right? If success is just making comfortable money while enjoying your game, absolutely. Even a part-time grinder can achieve it. Can it be done alone without, coaches, without a team, etc., etc.? It absolutely can. The question is, how efficient are your study methods? How well do you work on your game? How well do you work, or how good are you at evaluating yourself, evaluating your game, and finding the most efficient ways to improve, to get new information, to assimilate that information, and to be able to recall that information in game. These are the things that, stand out. Because, I mean, so many people have inefficient study techniques that, some people might study, 40 hours a week, right? And they still don't learn as much practical, usable information, and don't gain the same skill level as somebody who would be very efficient with their studies, but let's say 1 hour a week. So it's not only about how much time do you have available for poker, but how do you use that time? That's what matters more.
Yes, I agree. It's just not good enough to watch videos anymore. Especially, when it's just a live play video, not a structured video about the spot. And, I think it's also important to just know for yourself how much time you have, what you want to achieve, and then act accordingly. Because, if you only have 4 hours a week and you have to study and you want to play mixed games, that's just not going to be enough, If $200 a month is enough for you and you don't have much time, then you can just, I don't know, bum hunt heads up, or you could play spin and goes or sit and goes or something like that. So it's easier to learn, but also the amount you can win is capped. So you have to decide that for yourself.
Yeah, but also if you have only 4 hours a week available, well, unless you're Tim Ferriss, you can't really achieve much.
Oh, yeah, I was just talking about time to study.
Oh, time to study 4 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought just in general 4 hours for poker a week. Tim Ferriss would probably just outsource the whole thing. Make the Indian people play for him, or wherever, some call center. Yeah,
I mean, you could let a bot play for you, or an Indian guy.
yeah, right. Yeah. So let's see. I saw something in the chat. So I don't care is saying, if you started now, would you approach low stakes? So how would you approach the low stakes? Would you get the best rake bag deal or focus on the win rate? On high rake side, like Poker Stars. Actually, I'm gonna publish a video about this on the YouTube channel pretty soon. It was scheduled to be out, I think this week or next week. But anyway, you guys keep an eye on that. There's gonna be a video speaking exactly about this thing of how to move up the stakes from starting from the bottom, right? So that's gonna be out there. So I don't think we need to focus too much about it. Here, I'm gonna post a link to the YouTube channel in case you guys still haven't found it. But in general, yeah, rakeback deal is gonna be super huge, important part for you, right? And because at the lower stakes, obviously the rake just eats into your win rate so much that getting some of it back is gonna be super important.
I think the most common mistake is just playing too much and without studying enough. I think that's by far the biggest mistake, the most common mistake.
Right. But you know what? Also a mistake of, well, I don't even know how to put it without offending too many people, but so many people study, but it really is just, they think they study. Just
So they're
because
just
you
watching
spend it,
videos.
well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can watch videos in a way that's gonna be useful, right? But just so many people say, well, I study and I study 8 hours a week, whatever. But it's, more and more, it's clear that how important efficiency in studies. That's basically, you can't expect the same results if, for example, again, coming back to the same example of you can study 40 hours a day, but you can still learn less applicable information than somebody who's very efficient with the way they approach everything and they study only 1 hour a week. So what chance do you stand, right? So it's about not only how much you study, but how efficient is your study. And somehow not too many people talk about it, right? Because it's so easy to say just like, oh, yeah, I study. Because, like we're so used to from our public education system of you sort of study for exams, so you don't really need to recall this information 5 years from now, and it's like nobody cares, and it's just over and over again. Like, yeah, I read a book, so I know about the subject just enough to pass the exam. Well, guess what? In poker, this exam is every day, and as long as you play, every day is an exam. Every day you need to know what you learned. This is not school, it's not the same type of study. It's more a study like I don't know, like an astronaut is gonna study all about his shuttle, for example, right? But he's gonna study it in such a way that when the shit hits the fan, he can actually execute it in flight. Right? It's not just theoretical studies. You can spend months studying the theory. If you can't apply the theory while you're playing, what good is it to you?
Yes, that's true. And also, I think it's important that you repeat it over and over again so that it is in your long-term memory. So you can actually apply it in game. I have a little story here.
All right.
So today I spent a day in the office of international superstar and high-stakes player Steffen Sontheimer. And, also the way he approaches it is really professional. He plays for 2 hours then takes a break, analyzes everything, looks at the results, and then he plays again. And it just shows that it's always a process. There's always something you can learn, and you always, no matter how good you are, you always have to repeat it, It's just repetitions and repetitions, I think. Because if you just, watch a video and, the coach plays a hand and you see that and you don't really think about it and you don't really think about what you would have done in that situation, then there's no takeaway, and also you have to repeat it.
Yeah, and like you said, it goes to show that even the best players, and especially the best players out there, have a really diligent process in how they approach the studies. And somehow so many mid-stakes or low-stakes people think that they can just wing it. They can just play. So they studied up to a point, and now they just can keep playing and have random routines and random approaches, and it's somehow going to work out. Well, most of the time it doesn't.
Yes, yeah, I see it as two parts. There's always, I would call it starting the engine, where you have to build your game and learn all the basics and evolve strategies for different spots. And then there's always like you want to keep it running, because over time you forget some things, you're unsure about some spots, and then you always want to look at the spots after a session and then just confirm that the way you play is actually good and you don't make many mistakes. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, like, that's not the only approach, but it's a good approach. And I think, because when I'm working with my students, for example, right, I always see that for some people, one thing is going to be more efficient than for the other. So I'm always trying to figure out what is the best individual approach in terms of how to improve. Right? Because there's many things that can be done. Ideally, people would do all of these things, but that's just not real world. I mean, I'm not doing many things that would have been useful for myself just because, other things are more useful, so they top the list, and I don't have enough time to go through all of my list. Otherwise, I would have been, well, first of all, I wouldn't be here today. And I don't want that. Right? I want to also have a life, so sort of striking a balance of finding the most efficient ways for you personally, because every brain works differently. And by the way, I just want to mention that your earlier mentioned superstar Stefan, the Run Goose. Was it Run Goose? Right? The
Goose Core. Goose Core is his name.
Goose Core. All right. Anyway, he's coming on the podcast as well. Potentially.
Yeah.
It's not confirmed yet. But now he's under pressure.
I asked him and he said, "Oh yeah, sure."
Yeah.
So we don't have a date yet, but.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, we're just lining up the superstars, and but this is the most interesting part for me, because talking to these guys always just motivates me to do things, and always motivates me to keep working, to keep improving. You just always see that however much you've achieved, there's more to be done, and that's so inspiring.
Yeah, playing next to him was so much fun because, I thought about myself that I grind a lot. And, then I played my, I don't know, 2,000 hands a day. And then I just saw him playing 5,000 hands a day. And I was like, what in the world is going on? He
Yeah.
just played 5,000 hands a day and also analyzed a lot of hands in between the sessions. So it was just mind-blowing. I mean, of course, it's a little different because you can play more hands if you play Zoom, Six Max, No Limit Hold'em. And I also play some heads-up tables and, on different sides. So it makes it a little harder, but still it was super impressive. And yeah, even his whole schedule, even like how he approaches his game is just super professional and inspiring.
Well, that's going to be an interesting conversation when we have him on. I definitely want to dig into his schedules, his approach. Because clearly he's one of the people who's so focused on the improvement process, and he continually just delivers. And plus his whole personality is just always wonderful to have a chat with him. He's a very positive guy.
And a funny guy as well.
Yeah, true. Anyway, so what else did we want to talk about today?
I mean, as we said before, we weren't that prepared because
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
We're not
you
prepared
wanted
at
to
all.
be on the stream, on the
Well,
Galfond stream.
yeah, I was
So yeah.
supposed to do, and in fact, I was supposed to do Galfond stream from 5 to whatever, 9 or 10, however long they would be playing. And then after that, I was supposed to come join Jane Anders on his highlight show. So I was basically I'm doing the commentary for, from 5 to midnight. So that
You
didn't
are a
happen.
workhorse.
I am a workhorse, yeah. So right now, this 2-hour thing that we're doing today here is just a breeze. It's easy. Yeah.
So Coffee Attack is asking Tobi, who are you talking about? I was talking about Goosecore, Steffen Sondheimer. Yeah, he's been a PLO Zoom crusher for years and years, and also he played a lot of live tournaments, the Super High Rollers, and crushed them as well.
Yeah.
I actually thought that, most players know him, but maybe it's because it's the PLO podcast. So yeah.
Yeah. But also he's been quite public with his live tournament things. So, maybe some people don't follow that. Regardless, I mean, you guys gonna really enjoy the conversation with him when we have it. Once again, I'm building up the pressure on him to to just do it. Yeah.
Oh, we had some great ideas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if we can do that, but
Yeah,
I
we
think
can
it
do
would be funny.
anything. I mean, we'll see. I'm saying that now. Maybe I hear your ideas. I'm gonna be like, guys, now listen. This is what are you talking about?
I think in order to make it more interesting, we need more drama. We need more, what's his name again? Jerry Springer. Do you know the Jerry Springer show?
No, what's that all about?
It's an American talk show where they just basically beat each other after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's it was just fun, but we talked about the list of the 5 players we hate the most in live poker and in online poker and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I'm gonna check it out, Jerry Springer. And by the way, I forgot we had a question in the chat about whether it makes sense to use Pio Solver for low limit live or online players.
Pio player? Pio solver?
Pio Solver. Well, yeah. Pio.
For
That's the
Hold'em?
question. For Hold'em, yeah, clearly, because
Of
you can't
course,
use
yeah.
it for. It of
I
course
think
makes
it's
sense. Any solver for Hold'em or PLO, it makes sense. But usually the low stakes people have bigger problems than trying to be GTO. To be honest, what's your opinion, Tobi?
about what? About Pio? Or
Well, about whether it makes sense to use for a low stakes player a Pio solver.
see, that's the thing that I mean, once again, what are your goals? If you want to beat No Limit 2, then you don't need to buy a program for $500. If you want to become the best player in the world, then you have to buy it. So it's always a matter of what do you want to achieve, how much money do you have, what are your goals, stuff like that. So what is the best program you can recommend for studying PLO? I mean, it's just not that clear because do you want to play short stack? Do you want to play heads up? Do you want to play mid stakes? How much money do you have? How much time do you want to invest? Um, I
And
think you
also,
have to
like,
specify.
I suppose it's important to mention that, somehow people are trying to find programs that are somehow gonna help them, and it comes back to the same thing that I was talking about before: being efficient with your studies. Sometimes working on the wrong thing for long, long hours is worse than not working at all, to be honest. You know?
Yeah.
So I would be quite careful with, because I see so many people get bogged down in studying with some sort of program that makes them feel that they're actually learning something and they're making huge strides and big progress, but in reality, they very often are not, and very often it's focused on the wrong thing. Because again, you have to study in a way that's going to be useful when you play.
Yeah, that's true. Um, so yeah, I don't want to leave him hanging. So I think if I had to decide, I mean, once again, the question is not that clear, but I think a good way to go is to buy the Ch9's course, or not the course, but the his website. You can just subscribe for a month and then uh, watch the videos, but with a goal in mind. So not just randomly pick some videos, but let's say you want to play short stack, start with that. Watch all the videos about short stack, and not just the live play videos, but the videos where he talks about like specific spots, and then go from there. Or if you have like bigger goals and you're uh, you're a little more experienced and you want to become a high stakes player, then obviously you should just find a coach that loves the spot. Um, and then, if you have more time, more money, you can always buy a marker solver. Use code Tobi. You can always buy marker solver, do your own studies, make your own solutions, and go from there. And I have all the programs. I just want to get as much input as I can, and it's always important that you have that you can see from different angles and have different sources, and also they're just different situations. For example, sometimes I have a preflop spot I'm not sure about, and sure, there's Monker solver, but I don't want to solve just for a random preflop spot. So then it's good to go to Chain Honest. He has a preflop solver there. You can check how big your AV is, and then you can go from there. Um, if you want to exploit the opponent and you see, okay, it's just marginally plus AV, then you can just let it go. If you just want to know what the base strategy is, you can just use your own marker solution or PLO matrix. But if you use PLO matrix, for example, it doesn't show you the EV. So, yeah.
Right, so you basically mentioned all of the options out there, which is exactly as you said. That's your approach. You're doing, you're trying to get as much input as possible, and that is clearly a way to go once you reach a specific level. For somebody, who's starting out, it's just super important to find Well, I mean, clearly the best way to progress is to find a good coach, because oftentimes, the problem that people are struggling is not so much that there's lack of resources, it's just how do you use these resources. There's too many options out there, in fact. And if you would want, like, if you say, like, imagine a little thought experiment. You say, okay, today I'm going to study for 8 hours. So how is that going to look like? Do you have a plan in mind? Do you know what you need to study on? Do you know which spots you need to work on and how? And also, what's your approach in terms of how are you going to make sure that you can actually use this information later when you're going to be playing, right? So all of these questions, the sort of the bigger picture, is oftentimes more important for people than just finding the tool, because there's no right tool. There's no one tool. You have to basically be open to using all the information out there. Because, like, lack of information is not the problem here. It's what you do with it. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think basically what I wanted to say is that there are different programs, different softwares, and different websites for different situations. And if you want to become a really good player, you have to use a lot of them, I think.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, what else could we have a bit of time, so let's get back to this Galfond thing, right? Because this was the big underlying story. What do you think? Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what's gonna happen with Phil. Like, he has 6 more challenges, or 5 or 6 more challenges coming up. What should he, like, what would be your advice to him, Tobi, right now? What should he do?
I mean, it's super hard right now.
While you're thinking, I can answer to the 9 high like a boss. They're not playing tonight. If you haven't heard, Phil is taking a breather. They're not going to play for the rest of the month. He just announced it today. Well, on Monday he took his day off, which was allowed, 1 day off per week, which you can use, and then, just took the rest of the month off as well. And he's paying penalties for the days that he's not playing, so he's playing €3,000 per day for the 6 days that they had still scheduled for this month. Yeah. So, Tobi, you had some time to think about it. So what's your
Okay.
advice to Phil?
So I think I would just take a couple of days off and not think about poker. Just do something completely else, like working out or just something he enjoys. And then I would talk to my team after that, after let's say 2 or 3 days, and then just keep working on my game. And then, yeah, analyze all the sessions, analyze the stats, see where I could exploit Veni, and then go from there. I think there's not much else you can do. It's just, yeah, just a little reset break, and then keep grinding, keep working, keep improving.
All right. Well, we should definitely send this to Phil. I can totally agree with what you're saying. I'm sure that's what he's going to be doing, right? He obviously still needs to talk with his team and figure out whether it's worth continuing. Not only for, just the win rate sake, but he also has to, like, he's in a tough spot. He has to keep in the back of his mind that he still has a lot of challenges lined up, right? So he can't make this decision in a vacuum. So in fact, there's so many things that kind of prevent him from making an easy decision, right? A decision in a vacuum would have been an easy decision here, but he has the public spotlight on him, which can be unkind if he, throws in the towel, and he also has the consideration of all the other challenges coming up, right? Because that's a big thing, right? Imagine if he goes back to play against Veni, and it doesn't go well, and he really goes on like, you know, struggling with his motivation, struggling with his state of mind. Well, he still has a lot of poker to play ahead, right? So regaining composure, regaining full focus, that's going to be a pretty big challenge.
Yes, I also think I would just turn off my phone for a day. Or, at least not open Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Just no social media for 2 days.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I think he just gets reminded over and over again that he's losing right now, that it's not going well, that he's likely to lose the challenge. And I think it's just better if you just completely reset your brain for 2 days or so.
Yeah. Well, he absolutely has to. Yeah. Coffee Attack is asking if we think that Veni is taking a few days off currently, or is he in the lab? I don't know. I don't know. If I was Veni at this stage, I would take a few days off. Just for a simple reason that I think, well, I know that this sort of breather that Phil imposed here was unexpected for Veni. And I don't know if continuing with this, like, routine that he has right now, which is basically full focus on the challenge, if that's going to be good, considering that, this move from Phil basically prolongs the challenge even longer, makes it even longer, right? So they're going to potentially go way over 2 months here. So maybe taking some time off now would be a great idea. But the challenge for Veni is, of course, to keep his mind clear as well. He can't start thinking about, counting the money or any of that, because, if they get back to playing and, definitely like a bad swing can start. If he's not in a fully focused state of mind, it's going to be just too easy to get derailed, and that's risky. But probably taking a couple days off would have been a smart thing.
Yes, I think it's also going to be hard for him to analyze all the sessions, because I think that Phil is going to work a lot on his game and, ask his crew and maybe change his game a little bit. So maybe there's not that much to learn from the way he played in the past. But maybe it's just a minor point. I'm not actually I'm not that sure about that.
Mm.
So Chadovsky is saying minus 900K. Is he married? And his wife wouldn't appreciate.
No, definitely not. Yeah, he's saying that Phil would probably need to spend a couple nights away from home. For sure.
He has to sleep on the couch now.
No, he has to sleep in the garage, man, or somewhere. Yeah.
Which makes it even harder to win the challenge.
Yeah, I imagine. I'm sure this is not happening, but yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the human aspect of it is interesting. Yeah, it would be very interesting to see the behind the scenes of what's going on. It would have been awesome if Phil had like a film crew following him, and so that we would basically see what does it do to his life, like a kind of a full Big Brother situation for Phil. Just put yourself out there. The problem with that, of course, is that it would create even more pressure on him, and that would be just absolutely insane to do.
Yeah, maybe he's doing that already, and we don't know.
Well, I talked with him about this idea before. He wasn't very, very into it. I think because he understands how much extra pressure that adds. I mean, of course, he might still be doing some little documentary out of it. I don't know about that. but I don't think he has a crew following him on a regular basis.
So would you want to do that?
To have a crew around me of, I mean, I see how it could have been really interesting as a project, and how it could, make poker more appealing and interesting for the public outside, the current poker kind of people, people from just the mainstream people. That might be interesting. But it's just too much. I think it's too much. This challenge in itself is already a hard thing, and then you have to deal with this thing. Just adding inconveniences to your life doesn't seem like a smart idea when you're trying to do something so huge.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And Topspins is asking, if the option was there for the coaches challenge, would I take it now? Nothing has changed on my side, really. I am still pretty happy that I didn't take it after all. I mean, I've spent 3 weeks deliberating and talking to Phil pretty much every day about it when we were discussing it, and I'm still pretty happy that I declined for doing it in January as the first participant, because I just see that it would have been fucking horrible for me. To do it later in the year, I'm still open to this idea. I might, but 50,000 hands, man. It's just crazy. You already see how difficult this 25,000 hand is against Veni for him. A 50,000 hand challenge. There's going to be huge swings, emotionally hard to work with, and you basically put the rest of your life on hold for that period, or at least I would have to. Like, I can't, have all my other commitments, all my other interests interfere with what needs to be done. And what needs to be done is playing 5 days a week and studying when you're not playing. There's no other way. So yeah, I just don't see the appeal, apart from the obvious appeal of, he wanted to do a challenge of, eventually 5-1. Initially we were talking 3-1. So for the most part we were talking 3-1. So it was 200,000 against his 600,000. Eventually he offered the 5-1, which was 200 to 1 million. Apart from that, which obviously is interesting, I don't really see many upsides to this.
So, I mean, 1 million is obviously a lot of money. And if you think you have an edge and you could earn on average, let's say, I don't know, 300K with this challenge, do you think sometimes it's worth it to sacrifice time now in order to have more time later on in your life?
Sometimes it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense in my current situation because, first of all, let's think about the 300,000 thing here, which you were estimating that on average, for example, that would amount to like a 300K profit, which let's assume that's the number. It's not, maybe it's more. But the thing is, there are so many unknowns for me here. Like, I am used to playing poker professionally for over 10 years. I'm used to swings. I'm not fazed by them. I'm used to studying a lot. I'm used to, working on my game all the time and just getting back to the game all the time. What I'm not used to is the public spotlight on something that I'm forced to do. What I'm not used to is not being able to take a few days off completely away from poker when I need to take a few days off, right? Because like, for example, right now, Phil really needs those few days off and he's paying 3K a day for them. So there are so many unknowns here that would really put me out of the comfort zone, put me out of everything that I know. So this challenge is not just a poker challenge. There's so many aspects here that go beyond that. And I don't know. I mean, is it really worth it? Even if we, put out the number, like you said, 300,000, right? It's a nice number. Sure, 300,000 buys you something nice. The problem is, what's the time frame here, right? Because we're talking, if it's 50,000 hands, maybe that's 3 months, but then there's also about a month leading up to that of preparation. Then you can account for some delays. So maybe you're looking at like a 5 months. All of a sudden, 300K for 5 months of hell. Sound good to you?
Actually, it does, to be honest, yeah.
Really?
I mean, first of all, I wouldn't call it hell. I think, that's what I do every day. I just play poker for hours and hours because it's fun to me. And I
Yeah,
think
but hey, do you
for me, it
have
wouldn't be
like
hell.
obligation to play every day, specific time of the day, with all the spotlight on you, with all the public pressures, without you being able to take a day off?
To me, it's also a little appealing because I think the pressure is great in a way, and also this big challenge it's also motivating in a way, I think. And 300K for 5 months is a lot of money. And as I said, I mean, I wouldn't call it hell. I don't think it's that bad.
Right. Well, but I mean, it can be really bad, right? Because you can't discount the risks of the challenge, right? You have to think about the worst case scenarios. On average, it's probably not hell. On average, this challenge is not going to be like a 5 months of hell. But there's a pretty big risk of, that it's going to basically derail the rest of your year. Loss of confidence, just, so many aspects here, so many aspects that are hard to imagine and quantify on paper, right? So in reality, I don't know. I mean, you're saying 300,000 for 5 months sounds great. I don't know. I mean, it's cool, yeah, sure, but so is like selling your
For
liver for a 1 million or something. Yes, like, is money really that important? Because also, let's not forget that, first of all, we're talking 300,000 in 5 months for doing something that I don't want to do, right? While putting everything else on hold. So if the situation was that, if on average I'm making zero in 5 months, then we're talking, okay, pure profit 300,000. But it's not the case. I'm not making zero in half a year. I'm not making nothing. I'm making something. So it's not really 300,000 that we're talking about, So in the end, you have to think about like how much extra it adds and whether that extra is worth it for you to put everything else on hold. Because like for Veni, it was easier because he doesn't have additional commitments at this point, right? So he
Yeah.
didn't have to put the rest of his life on like complete back burner somewhere that he's going to revisit once he's done with the challenge.
Yeah, right. Royal Flush is asking, how did you get the 300K number?
I
That
don't know,
was just,
Tobi. So
I
tell
mean,
me, Tobi.
that was just an example. That's just
Yeah.
something we talked about. Because there was this 1 million side bet, and if you think you have an edge, yeah, I mean, that was just a wild guess. That was just, yeah, something you can think about.
Mm.
Somebody fun to be fast. I agree.
All right.
I would totally play the challenge if I had the money. No, honestly, I'm just not good enough. And
No, but like really, I'm interested now. Let's assume you are good enough, and you have the money, or I mean, if you're good enough, finding the money is not even that big of a problem. Would you really play? But think about it, because I know from my perspective, when I was considering the challenge, right, when Phil announced it, my first reaction was, "This is absolutely awesome. I'm in. Let's do this." We start talking with him. For probably the first 3 days, I was super pumped. I was like, "I'm doing this. This is amazing. This is the best thing that happened to poker. This is great. I love the idea." The more I thought about it, the more we get into the details, the more I realized, well, this is just bad. But you seem to, because it's not the first time we talk about the challenge. You obviously had some time to think about it. So in your mind, you think like this is absolutely something you would have jumped on. In your current situation, I'm not talking hypothetical of, you're just whatever guy who the only thing you do in life is play poker and you have no other obligations. In your real situation, would you really jump on it?
okay, I mean, without talking too much about my personal life, I wouldn't do it now
Aha, so
because of
that's the bombshell. So all
certain
this
reasons.
talk, and now we get to the fucking thing.
Yeah, but the situation is very special, and you know it. So
I know
it's
it, but
so different.
that's my point. My situation is special for me. I know some people wouldn't see it this way, but I think it's important that everybody who took this challenge probably took it because it fit into their life at that specific time. This is not just numbers. This is not just numbers. This is not just some idea of, this is somebody's life. In this case, it's Phil's life and Vinny's life, which are out there, and they're two humans playing against each other while having a life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I see your point. Obviously, it makes sense for you to not play.
All right, so still people are talking about the Luke
Okay,
Schwartz
I think I
tweet.
gotta read it now.
You gotta read it and you have to report it to me, because I don't really want to read it, because then I'm gonna be not focused. We're gonna basically have a couple minutes of silence that on the stream. But Ari is saying that he basically sent a long tweet calling Phil a washout, and that he can't beat the game.
Pigeon.
And Phil said that they're gonna play after WSOP.
Oh no. By the way,
Luke
what
back. Oh,
about
but that's the
what
old
about
one. No, that's
Arthur,
the
by
old
the way?
one, because there's a newer one.
What about Arthur, by the way?
What about what?
Arthur? Isn't his stream gonna start
Oh,
in?
yeah, man, we are so bad. Arthur is gonna be right after us, but usually he's really cool with it. He told me that he doesn't mind that we eat into his stream that much.
Okay. So if you
But you
want me
guys
to, I can.
stay put, because Arthur is coming on after us, and he's gonna stream as always. It's real fun.
Okay, so
Did you read it?
solve for why. Galfond is writing these pigeon fucking notes after he gets his ass handed to him every session by someone who is 5 years and 14 advanced solvers better than him. Forget you talking about A game, B game, C game. Your A plus game will lose him at close to the same rate than you have been. Whilst you're sitting there posting these long ass bowl notes about mental game running bad, etc., mate, VeniVidi is absolutely chilling, thinking, wow, how have I stumbled across this massive spot? Truth is, You're a washed up nice guy, everyone has their time, you certainly can't beat the top guys in PLO anymore. It's clearly time to wave the white flag. And for all these fanboys and other players leeching onto his post-session notes and thanking him for sharing his delusional run-back theories and heartfelt thoughts, seriously, grow the fuck up. He's a fucking spam force. He tried to do something to make his poker side more relevant. It stung him in the ass, and he's either got too much ego or too stupid to quit. You basement boys living in the past of full tilt days. Phil was good then, but the game has passed him, and you really shouldn't care. And for those of you who do care, then wow, you need help. Phil is no LeBron James.
This is funny.
Wow, he's such a positive guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Luke Schwartz, everyone. Beautiful.
Do you know the video of him against David Benjamin?
No. Was that the video where he's in the casino and talking shit about Benjamin, or when they're with Benjamin?
Yeah, he plays against Benjamin, and then he's like, "Oh fuck it, I'm all in," and then he's like, "Fuck you, you arrogant guy! In your eye, in your eye." It's just super funny. He just loses it without a reason. He's
Yeah.
just super
Oh
mad
yeah,
and
man, but he really does lose it
angry.
without the reason. I remember I think it was like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I was playing in the Vic in London, and Luke was at the table, so we are all playing, and like, at the table next to us, some guy just made a comment about something. Or actually, no, some guy might have just, shouted out loud, like, oh my god, this is unfair, this is whatever, unlucky. So he got a bad beat or whatever. So, but these things happen all the time, like somebody screaming in the casino once in a while, right? So Luke was sitting at our table, starts shouting at that guy at the other table, shut the fuck up. People are playing the real game down here. You're playing for your fucking peanuts there. Nobody cares. You shut the fuck up. And all of a sudden it grows into this complete weird sort of almost a fight situation. I'm thinking, like, how did this escalate to that? Like, literally nobody gave a fuck about that guy screaming. He wasn't even screaming that loud, but he was just at the other table, just made a comment about how bad he runs. And all of a sudden Luke just goes into this crazy monkey rant about that, you playing your peanut game, nobody gives a fuck. I'm trying to concentrate here, we're playing the real game. Like, what the fuck? How does that happen? Like, I don't know. Oh man, that's Luke Short. I shouldn't talk too much about Luke, because I'm sure he's gonna start the war on Twitter, and I'm not gonna win, because this guy, I mean, if you want a nasty comment, he's your go-to guy. Is just awesome. And it's very entertaining though, Luke.
He
But,
might challenge you.
oh yeah, well, he might challenge me. What am I gonna do then? Yeah.
And we forgot him earlier, but he's also actually a top 5 player.
Really? I don't think we forgot him. But, oh man, he's a good player, but top 5 in PLO, please. Heads up, PLO. I mean, he has, some respect from me, because this guy been around for so long, and he just does his thing very well, and he's good at game selecting. His trash talk and everything gets him into the good games. Certain type of people really want to play against a guy like this, right? So the guy knows what he's doing.
Oh, wait a minute. There's a second page, and there's also a response.
Oh. So in fact, what Ari was saying, it's all absolutely true, and thanks, Ari. Oh well.
Okay, so Phil is no LeBron James. He's a nerdy little nice guy who is trying to extend his poker money, making by his poker money making by getting some traction of his failing side. This is almost painful to watch, is what I hear people say. Painful, why? Because the egotistical, hey guys, it's Phil, is getting bashed up by the unknown human robot. Time to get some new poker hero, lads. I mean, why would you even do that?
I don't know.
Curtain calls.
Let's ask Luke, or better not ask Luke. Would you want to be the butt of his jokes, like this guy bullying you on Twitter? Imagine poor Phil, he's already feeling crappy. He's already like, oh shit, this thing really backfired. I need to regain my focus. And all of a sudden, Luke Schwartz chips in like, oh, you need to regain your focus? Well, guess what? I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you real good here.
But wait, it goes on.
All right. Well, are you really gonna read the whole thing?
Nah, probably not.
Probably not. Otherwise, we're gonna eat into Arthur's time way too much. But anyway, to recap, Galfond, well, best of luck to him. I hope he regains his composure. I hope he comes back. I still want to see this challenge continue. I know you do too, Tobi, and
of course,
probably most of us. I mean, we all want to see this going. It's a lot of fun. It would be interesting to see how it goes after he comes back from his little retreat. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep a close eye on that. I might talk to Veni again sometime soon just to see what's going on through his mind, because now I'm pretty curious on how does he handle this unexpected break. Yeah. Anyway, so this is gonna be fun to watch. And still, I really hope that Phil, gets his things together and gets back at it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Right. Anyway, guys, you've been awesome today in the chat. It was really fun. Our 2 hours flew by super quick.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna be back next week with Ben CB as our guest. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that one. The episode that we did with Jane Andes last week is going to be available on YouTube this weekend. So for those of you who haven't seen it, you guys can catch up on YouTube. What else? Did I forget something?
I don't think so.
Me neither. Oh, and in fact, I'm also going to publish a short video about the Galfond challenge, like a little recap of some fun things for all of you guys, and that's also probably going to be either this weekend or shortly after.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully see you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.